Fisherman's Post. More fish, more often.
Hello and welcome once again to the Fisherman's Post Saltwater Podcast Series. This episode is one of our special travel episodes, and it's titled Charleston, Nearshore, Cobia. I'm going to be talking with Captain Cody Margate of All-in-One Charters out of the Charleston area, and Cody is going to walk us through what to expect and what you can learn from a day on his boat in Charleston chasing cobia. My name is Gary Hurley of Fisherman's Post, and Fisherman's Post has been serving the saltwater fishing community since 2003. We've been bringing you fishing reports, fishing information, fishing tournaments, fishing schools, and now in our latest and greatest efforts, the Saltwater Podcast Series, where we feature local captains and guides from up and down the North Carolina coast, sharing their insights, their knowledge on how to catch more fish more often. I'm joined in this endeavor, in this travel podcast special episode, with my partner, Billy Thorpe of Thorpe Creative. Billy, welcome to a special episode.
What's up, Gary? I'm excited, man. Charleston is a beautiful place, so to have a connection down there to book a trip with and go fishing, it's going to be good for you, good for our viewers, and the people who listen to the podcast. So hopefully be a good episode, and Cody will get some calls from people up our way, so that'd be a good fishery.
If I don't turn this special podcast series focused on Charleston into a trip for myself to Charleston, then I'm not the person I think I am.
Then I'm going to have to find a new co-host, Gary, because I got to find a co-host that can get on free trips, all right? That's why I'm here, to get you booked on free trips.
No, I think everyone, that's part of why I picked this out, man. Most people are fond of Charleston and, our fishing crowd. I have been fortunate only once to fish in the Charleston area. Certainly it's on my list to increase. And I just think other people like me are like me and would love a reason to go to Charleston, make the wife, the girlfriend happy, go fishing. Everyone's happy. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, man, it's going to be good. And I'm sure it's beautiful. It's beautiful on foot, so I can't imagine from the other side, the other perspective. So, well, I'll go ahead and get into some of our sponsors, Gary. We're happy that Marine Warehouse Center and Bland Landscaping Co. are back on board with us. So, real quick, I'll jump into Bland Landscaping Company. They're established in 1976 here, and they are looking for some really good employees and really career-minded people who love the outdoors, who are family-friendly, just really people who are looking to make a career, Gary. So they are fans of the show, actually reached out to us and said, hey, we want to support the fishing show. We're big supporters of the fishing community, and so they're looking for good people to come and be on their team with a lot of growth opportunities, a lot of benefits. So you can go check out their website, blandlandscapingco.com or blandlandscaping.com, and go to careers and apply and see if they got something in your area, because they're all over North Carolina, so that works out pretty good. So if you're looking for a new gig, Gary, when I kick you off of this show, this is going to be open, man. It's going to be open. Or just
a third gig. My wife and kids have been saying, Dad, can't you make any more money? There's some hours you're sleeping that maybe you could be working a third job. So I'll put it in my back pocket.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, there's 6 more hours, dude. You don't need 9 hours of sleep. 3 is, fine. So, all right. And then one of our longest standing sponsors, Marine Warehouse Center, making this show possible. We really, really appreciate those guys. Excited to have them back on board this year as well. So, got a quick message from them. We'll be right back.
Marine Warehouse, we have everything. We have new boats, we have parts, we have accessories, new trailers, we have a complete service department with highly trained technicians. Anything you need to get out on the water, we have it.
At Marine Warehouse Center, as we've grown over the last few years, now have a large section of marine supplies from start to finish for all your boating needs.
What I love about this region is to be able to get out on the water, and also we love to be able to get you out on the water.
The best part of working at Marine Warehouse is being able to get involved with the customers and share a love for the water.
Boom, there you go, Gary. Marine Warehouse
Great
Center.
Guys. Parts, sales, service, all of it, man. Great guys and okay joke tellers.
Okay. Well, and also they have a location in Charleston as well. So you guys make sure you go check those guys out down that way. So that'd be good for people who are listening to this and you're from the Charleston area. They got some location there to buy boats, fix boats, do all that fun stuff as well. So who's been telling the jokes recently? Is it Terrell?
It's still Terrell. Terrell would love, by the way, anyone to stop by or call in and give him some jokes. He actually sort of hinted that he's running out of jokes. So if you're in the Marine Warehouse Center area, or if you're not, give him a call. I don't think email will work. My understanding is Terrell just got his first email address ever for the first time in his life this year. So email might not be the most effective. I mean, he kills it on the parts, but email, a challenge. You can tell me whether or not 2022 Terrell is still telling good jokes. Here you go. Terrell's joke, not mine. Are you ready?
I'm ready when you are.
What do you call a boat full of buddies?
A boat full of buddies?
Yeah, buddies.
I don't know.
A friendship.
All right. Yeah. You know, as we're recording this episode, Gary, I think you just got off of a boat full of buddies, so you just got done with a friendship.
Vonda K. I was on a friendship.
You were on a friend.
I was on a friendship. A whole boat full of buddies. I was. Well, there you go. Terrell's joke. So you can gauge. I think he does need some help. So please stop by the store or call and give Terrell your joke suggestion. I'm asking.
Yeah.
You. I mean,
And as soon as
even
I
if
get
Terrell's
that-
not asking, I'm asking you to do.
And as soon as I get his email, I'll put it on the screen. Don't worry. I'm just waiting.
It's an AOL address. He got the CD and
Yeah, it is. He probably found it in his kitchen drawer after 20 years. Like, what's this? I get an email. Here we go.
hey, photo feature.
Here we go. We got a photo of Adelaide and Michael Johnson caught this cobia with a piece of squid on a circle hook. They were fishing 30 miles out of Topsail Inlet. I don't know anything about cobia fishing, but that thing looks pretty yummy. Pretty good looking fish there.
It is yummy. You are going to learn a lot, I predict, man. I predict
I'm excited.
Cody lays it down, man. Yeah, hard fighting fish, fun to hunt, and delicious as well. That was a good photo. Enjoyed that one on the water. Looked good. And we appreciate everyone who sends in photos.
Absolutely. And also, if you want to support Gary and I as content creators, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/fisherman's post, buy us a $5 cup of coffee. We want to thank everyone who has been contributing, a lot of contributors to that, a lot of supporters supporting our content creation opportunity here, Gary. So really appreciate you guys. And then if you want to sponsor the show, much like Bland Landscaping Co. and others, feel free to reach out to me, Billy@fishermanspost.com, and we'll get you in the lineup. So Gary, back to you, man. I'm excited about cobia.
All right, I'm going to introduce Cody, but before I do, my reminder to you, Billy's best takeaway. We're coming back after I finish talking with Cody. Billy's best takeaway. But at this point, it is my pleasure to introduce a friend of a friend, Captain Cody Margate of All-in-One Charters out of the Charleston area. Cody, thank you for joining the show for a special travel feature.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, right on, man. I'm excited to talk Charleston, Nearshore, Cobia. But as is tradition on the show, we've got 2 questions to get through before we get to the main event. Cody, if you're ready, I'll give you question number 1.
Shoot.
So, Cody, why should we listen to anything you have to say about a cobia?
I'll tell you what, I catch a whole lot of them. I kind of grew up doing that type of fishing. My dad was a guide for quite a while. He kind of got me into the business as well as my cousin. So me and my cousin kind of guide side to side, and we really do bust these cobia up. I think one week we had 4 days straight where we caught over 50 of them each day this year, and then we usually average anywhere between 15 to 40, 30, 40 of them as an average fishing day on those cobia. And some days we do much more than 50 of them. It's really a lot of putting in time, figuring out what depth they're in, what they're eating, how they're behaving, how to get them how to bring them up off the bottom. It's just a lot of hours that I put into to figure them out.
Well, man, I'm definitely paying attention. Numbers like that, you already have I am going to listen to what you have to say about a cobia. That was perhaps one of the better answers we've ever had to question number 1. But question number 2, as tradition goes, is a non-fishing related question, and yours is a little trivia based. Coming from Charleston, I have a Charleston area question for you. What one of the following list was first established in the U.S. in Charleston? So I'm going to give you a list of 4 things Charleston boasts being the home of the first ever in the United States. Is it the first public college, the first museum, the first playhouse, or the first golf club?
Boy, I want to say it's the first museum, if I'm thinking correctly.
You are thinking
Oh,
correctly, and it's actually a trick question. All
Charleston
four
Museum.
were first in Charleston.
Oh,
Charleston boasts
really?
the first
Okay.
public college, the first museum, the first playhouse, and the first golf club. So there,
So I'm
you couldn't have
guessing
given a
College
wrong answer. How
Charleston.
about that, man? I'm looking out for you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. No wrong answer there.
No wrong answer. All right.
Perfect.
So the idea of this sort of travel feature, this is my brainchild, so I hope it works out. We'll see if it works out. Is a day on the water with you, and you're going to explain to us a day on the water with you chasing these cobia, and then in the process, we're going to learn something about cobia fishing. So let's start this day. Like, if I'm a client of yours, where do you typically have me meet you?
So I typically have people meet me in Shim Creek, whether it be at one of the bars along the creek, Reds, Water's Edge, or even the public dock at the very end of the creek. We like to pick up there because it's a nice centralized area. Because a lot of times when people after fishing, they want to go see the city, so I'll drive them around. It's right there in the middle of it. But that also gives us an opportunity to, when we get back, to get food to clients. There's all those bars have food and a lot of restaurants there. But we like Shim Creek because it's right there in the middle of the harbor. And we leave out of the harbor and we go straight out, start catching bait and moving on. The bait is we usually catch it on the way out from Shim Creek. So it's a really good location to pick up from.
And the basic instructions of what I need to bring are?
I provide everything except for alcohol and food. I always carry a bunch of waters and sometimes sodas. But if you want to bring alcohol, food, that's all you really have to bring. That and some I carry sunscreen on there, and sometimes people prefer other sunscreen, so they bring that. But I have all the baits, I have all the tackle, all the rigs, water. We're ready to rock and roll when you hop on the boat.
And what is the season, man? If I were saying, hey, I want to look at the calendar in 2022, you would tell me that the cobia season expands from this date to this date and perhaps peaks more, you can't predict every year, but, historically peaks around where?
Okay, sure. So it usually begins mid-May and goes on until about the beginning of October. My favorite, probably August, all throughout August and beginning of September is usually my favorite. That's when you kind of see the bigger ones show up, and even when you get on the smaller ones, the numbers are just there. There's a lot of them. That's going to be your peak time. It's probably beginning August till the end of August.
All right, man. So I'm on the boat. We're leaving the creek. We're leaving the dock, and we're getting bait on the way out.
That's right. So when we're getting bait, we usually run up one of our beaches, and you'll see tons of menhaden. I mean, pogies everywhere. We'll throw the net one time, load both live wells most of the time. Now, it's not always like that. Sometimes we kind of got to poke around and try to figure out what they're doing. Sometimes they're a little bit deeper in the water column. And, we've got to search for them. But for the most part, during that time of year, they're pretty easy to catch. We catch a ton of menhaden, fill up both live wells because you're going to need that live bait most of the time. Sometimes you can catch them on artificial. A lot of times you can't catch them on artificials, but you want that live bait to be really successful.
Are we what was I going to say? So are we catching them inside? We're catching pogies before we go out into the ocean?
That's right. So I usually use a 10-foot cast net, something that sinks really fast, half-inch mesh. Usually I'm going right off the beach as soon as I get outside the harbor. A lot of times I'll run up Morris Island, right along that beach, and you'll see what you're looking for is either pelicans diving. You'll usually see the pelicans diving every time, and then you'll kind of stumble across. You'll see those baits flipping in the water. And you'll throw that net on them, and more times than most times you're going to load up a net full first one or two casts.
So beachfront, not in the harbor, but once we go outside and turn a corner.
That's right. Sometimes we get lucky right in Shim Creek; they're piled in there, and we can throw the net before we even leave the dock and load up. But most of the time, you're going to find them off Morris Island, and it's to the point sometimes where you need help bringing that net in the boat because it's so heavy.
And what are you calling the ideal size of a live pogie for these cobia trips?
I like them the size of my hand. Yeah.
Okay. All right, man. So I'm on the boat. We've found we had to work a little bit, but that's part of the experience is searching for bait, finding bait, putting bait in the live well. And so how is it that you determine, what are some of the variables? I'm sure it changes I'm sure it changes day to day, but what are some of the variables that determine where you're going to fish on any given day for these cobia?
So usually when we're fishing for these cobia, we're going to artificial reefs. We have them stretched out throughout our whole coast. Mainly I stick around the 50 to 60 feet area. Pretty much any of the artificial reefs are going to carry these cobia. Some better than others. When we get out there, you'll see on the down scan and the side scan just huge structures, and a lot of them are old military vehicles, old sunken barges, sunken boats and ships. I mean, that's what they're hanging out on, and mainly that time of year is that artificial reef.
And 50 to 60 feet of water off of your coastline is roughly how far off your coastline?
About 12 miles.
About 12 miles. And
12
I didn't even ask this. I'm on. What's your boat? What am I on?
So I've got two boats right now. I've got a 2019 Sea Pro 248 DLX, as well as a 2016 Spider FX17 for the fly fishing for redfish and flats fishing.
All right, man. So any one of those wrecks can produce on any given day. Really, it's that simple.
It really is, and sometimes they congregate more in one area than others. And I've kind of got them dialed into where they're hanging out, but there are I can, depending on where I'm launching for the day, it's usually the same spot, but I can pretty much go north, south, straight out, whatever, and we can land on top of some cobia. Some places you have to work a little harder than others, especially when you have so many boats out there just beating these fish up. They get tired of it and sore mouths, so you kind of got to move around, so you find them sometimes, but for the most part they're in the same general area.
So when you pull up to you've made your selection of the first wreck or the first artificial reef you're going to target that day, and we're coming off plane and we're basically at that location, what are you doing next, or how are you advising me, the guest on the boat, to act? What happens next? Okay,
first thing, we pull up on these reefs. Usually in your reef areas, you're going to have multiple sets of structures. So what I'll do is I usually use my down scan, and I'll see if I can mark them first. You'll see those big boomerang shaped marks on your down scan right above that structure most times. So when I see that, first thing I'm going to do is drop that trolling motor. We're going to use spot lock to hold us in place. You don't really want to use anchors out there because a lot of times you're going to lose it if you drop it down there. But spot lock is a game changer when doing this. And then once we get out there, the first thing I'm going to do is what I like to do is if we're fishing live baits, I'll use, depending on the amount of people, we'll do half on bottom and we'll have half of them free lined with I'd say about a 4 or 5 feet leader, 60 pound on top of 65 braid. And what we're doing is I'm dropping the two bottom rigs straight to the bottom. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll reel up about 5-10 feet to kind of suspend it off the bottom. Sometimes we'll let it sit. The free line people have them just cast out somewhat far away from the boat. And what I'm doing while they're doing that is I'm taking a lot of that live bait, throwing it out there, just chumming up the water with live bait. A lot of times, while these people are catching them off the bottom, if you can throw out some live chum, it's going to bring a lot of those cobia up to the top of the water. You can see them. They'll come and check out your boat, and they get real dumb. And those free line guys will pitch it right at them and sight fish them. I mean, it's so much fun. I can't even really explain to you how much fun it is if you've never done it.
All right, so I definitely have some follow-up questions. So are you typically marking these fish like right over the structure, and you're spot locking right over the structure? It's never like beside it, and so is that
I'm right on
typically what happens?
Yep, I'm right on top of it. And there's multiple ways to get these cobia to come up, but I'm usually right on top of it, and I'll have my guys start ripping them up from the bottom. And a lot of times with these cobia, what they do, they're so curious. They'll follow their buddies that are hooked up. And you'll see sometimes 5-10 of them follow up one fish that you're hooked up to. And then the guys at the free lines can pitch right at them and catch the ones that are following the other ones. I mean, it's usually very active the whole time you're out there.
And so the two bottom rods are typically drop down and then bring up a little bit just so they're not sitting on something.
That's right.
And then the two light lines out. And so if you get a hookup on the bottom, do the lines stay out, or are you advising the guests to like bring them in until we get this fish in the boat? What happens when you get a hookup?
That's one of those things you want to play by ear. So usually when we hook up, I tell them the first 15 feet is so important. Get it off of that structure so they don't break you off. When they get them up to the boat, if there are fish following them, especially if there's better fish following them than one we have hooked up, I'll let them kind of hover there about 5 feet under the boat and have them just leave them there while the other guys get hooked up on the free lines. Now, if it's just a loner fish, we'll go ahead and bring them in the boat. And if it's a keeper, we'll keep them. If not, we'll toss them back, hook up another bait, drop it down again. But yeah, that's kind of how we do that when they're fishing on bottom. We kind of play it by ear, given the situation, whether they're fish following or not.
talk to me a little bit about more about the rig. Like, is it fluoro and definitely fluoro? Is it a circle hook? Like, what's your favorite?
I use 60-pound mono with usually a 6 or 7/0 circle hook. And my leader and we're basically using a Carolina rig with a 6-ounce sinker on a slider. And what I'm doing is I'm taking these pogies, and I mean, the leader's about 4 feet long. We're taking these pogies, and a lot of people like to hook them through the nose. I actually like to hook them through the back because a lot of times those cobia will kind of short strike them, eat them off the tail, and miss it if you have a hook through the nose. So unless it's on the free line, if I'm doing it on a free line, it's going through the nose. But if I'm dropping on bottom, I'm going through the back, right behind the head.
And so, is there a reason why mono and not fluoro, in your opinion?
Honestly, I like mono. It's a little bit easier to tie, especially when you're up to 60 pound. I think it cinches down a little bit better. Some people will disagree, but I prefer mono. Not only that, but 60-pound mono on these fish is plenty, given the angler, and it's cost effective compared to fluoro.
And are you finding that you get the opportunity? Is it just when you're hooked up and are able to entice fish up, or are you getting some sight fishing opportunities?
Oh no, you don't have to be hooked up to get them up. So like I was saying earlier, if you take those pogies and grab a couple handfuls of them, just toss them out and give it a couple minutes. A lot of times those cobia will come up off the bottom, come check it out and start eating them. And that's when you take them free lines and start just putting it in front of their noses. And there's other cool ways to bring those fish up. Some people frown upon it because you're killing fish doing it, but sometimes we'll take a big chugger, a big top water, and chugging it along the top and getting the mammerjack to eat. We'll tie off on the mammerjack off the side of the boat, a little bit cut up, and the big tiger sharks will come eat them. And those cobia follow those tiger sharks up too. So we'll catch those cobias off those tiger sharks. And these are big tigers, they're 10, 15-foot fish that we're catching them off of.
So hold on a second. I want to unpack that for a second. I enjoyed it. I'm enjoying this. So that's why I want to unpack it.
Piss off, I'm sorry. I might make some of the purists pretty mad about that, but sometimes that's what you got to do to get them to come up.
You're not making me mad. So what is it? You're chugging across like a topwater popper for the amberjack? Is that how you're bringing those up?
Yep.
They're not just coming up for the pogies like the cobia are?
They will sometimes too. It's just a lot of fun catching them on a big popper. And that kind of gives somebody else something to do. If we're dropping a bunch of lines for cobia and there's one extra person, we don't want to add too much to that going down to the bottom. I'll have somebody throwing topwater off the top, off the front of the boat and chugging it. And we'll catch amberjack that way, and sometimes cobia that way. But yeah, you catch them on the amberjack, tie them up off the tail, and cut them up a little bit, and big, huge man-eating sharks will come up and start chewing away at them right off the back of the boat. And you'll have cobia all over them. It's the most incredible thing.
How big are we talking with big tiger sharks?
10, 15 feet.
And huge. How close to the boat is this amberjack tied?
A lot of time, 3-4 feet off the back of the boat. Yeah, I've got quite a few videos on some videos on my Instagram, me playing tug of war with these tiger sharks with the amberjack right off the back of the boat.
Yeah, no hook, just playing tug of war.
No hook, just playing tug of war.
To go back to the cobia, man, is there like if there's one up there and you're telling me, hey, I want you to pitch a pogie to that one, I think you could get it to eat. I mean, what is the instruction? Is it to like cast past it and pull it into the cobia? Is it to just drop it right in front of its nose, not worried about how close it is? I mean, what's the spook factor? What's the best strategy?
That's the cool thing about cobia. They don't typically get spooked like that. You can throw it right in front of their nose and they're not going to swim off because they get spooked. A lot of times you can throw it right in front of them and they're going to try to eat it. Now, especially if there's a lot going on, if there's multiple fish, they're going to be fighting over these baits they see. So you can throw it right in front of their noses, and most times they're going to eat it. They're going to eat it pretty quickly. And then sometimes they do kind of check it out and look at it and wonder what it is, and and they'll swim off. But most of the time, put it in front of their nose, they're going to eat it.
And you also have artificials on the boat just as in case.
So I keep artificials on the boat. They're very effective, especially that time of year. I like to use bait just because it's almost a promise thing when you go out there if you got bait. Now, the artificials, a lot of times if we're tired of catching them on baits, we've already caught a ton of them. We'll be like, hey, do you guys want to catch some on artificials? And a lot of times they're going to say, yeah, especially after catching as many, a lot of them quickly. People get kind of bored of it. I mean, it's kind of weird to say you're getting bored of catching a bunch of cobia, but you do want to try different things. So what I like to use are big bucktails, big 3-ounce bucktails, 2 3-ounce bucktails. I like the big Z-Man, the big, huge, I want to say maybe 10-inch Z-Mans on their jig heads they make. Those work well, as well as Hoagies. Hoagies work well too, the big 14-inch Hoagies. Really any color will do. I like pink, but I've caught them on all colors. What else can we catch them on? You catch them on knife jigs. My favorite so far is a Shimano Colt Sniper. Those things catch them. They really catch them. And we're just dropping straight to the bottom and fast jigging it back up, and you get hooked up quite a bit on them. I mean, they're a lot of fun. And even if you use the big weightless Hoagies, when you start pulling them up, you can just skim one of those across the top and catch them. I've caught them on Cuda tubes before. I've caught Cobia on Cuda tubes.
So is there, in your opinion, is there a scenario where an artificial would be superior to live bait, or does live bait always win?
I do prefer live bait, but I think there are certain scenarios where artificial will do better, especially if you're using something that's just subsurface and they're all up top and you got tons of them all over the boat, and you can really dial in on catching the bigger artificial for eating like that. And I say that because, those pogies, when you're hooked through the nose, they can swim funny. They can, if you're trying to reel fast through the water to catch up to that big one that's swimming with the other smaller ones, sometimes they'll kind of sit sideways or they won't sit right. Now with an artificial, you can reel it fast. You don't have to worry about that happening or the bait falling off the hook. That's usually when that artificial is going to win in my eyes.
So, man, how crowded are we out there? So, like, if I ask you at the dock and you say, well, I got this AR in mind, and I say, what's your prediction, man? How many boats are going to be around us? Is it inevitable that we're with other boats?
Most of the time, especially on weekends, you're going to have other boats around. Sometimes I've seen 3 to 7 other boats, around us. And, it's not usually a big deal because we're all catching fish. But weekdays, especially Mondays and Tuesdays, are usually pretty good. Everybody's back at work. You really only have other guides that are out there, which is not bad. All of us guides in this area, we all get along for the most part. We'll call each other on the radio, be like, hey, the fish are over here, come sit next to me. And we'll kind of make sure all the clients are happy on all boats. Even if we're not working for the same companies, or it's somebody working for themselves, whatever it is, we all work together. So boats during the weekday usually isn't a bad thing. Boats on the weekend is usually not very good because there's just a bunch of people off work out there trying to bust up the fish.
And what are the Cobia Rigs in South Carolina? Like, what am I bringing home?
So right now they changed it from 32 inches to 36 minimum. There is no max on them. And, it seems like they change it on us. It seems like they change it every year. I mean, sometimes it's hard to keep up with. You really got to keep your eye on those regs, so they do change them. But you want a 36 minimum.
A 36 minimum, and the typical class of fish would range anywhere from where to where?
And, that's the thing, is a lot of them this year were on the shorter side, and they were, ranging between, most of them, I'd say about 80% of them were in between 32 inches and 35 inches, just an inch short. But we caught quite a bit bigger ones, over 40 inches.
All right. So I guess we're wrapping our 3/4 day up, and we're headed back to where you picked me up. And this leads to some of my travel questions. So,
sure.
I mean, this answer could go on and on because I'm talking to someone from the Charleston area, but part of traveling to fish means, man, after I want to celebrate my successful day of fishing with a nice meal, what do you got for me? You got a couple of you could go on and on, Charleston, but you got a couple of recommendations for me?
Sure. Yeah. I'll knock it down to 2 categories for you. It depends on if you want to drink more than you want to eat, or if you want to eat more than you want to drink. Now, if you're wanting to,
yes,
really get wild and drink, right there where I pick you guys up, there's Red's Ice House. It's an awesome bar on the water. You have Saltwater Cowboys, same thing, and Water's Edge. Those are all great places to hang out. They're right there on the creek, right next to each other. It's a good atmosphere right on the water. You get to share fishing stories with other people coming in. And if you're looking for really good food, I have 2 places that are my absolute favorite. One of them is going to be Vicious Biscuit. But they're only open until 3. So, that's something you can do the very next day, or if we get back early, you can go do it after that. I mean, it's the most incredible food. And then you've got about 5 minutes away from where I pick you guys up would be Page's Okra Grill. And that's where I like to go. That's my favorite place. The only problem is I can't fit a boat behind in that parking lot, so I usually got to drop the boat off first and then go back over there.
I forgot to ask, are you helping me clean my cobia, or is that something
I
that
clean
the
all the
guests
fish.
you
Yep,
clean
I
all
clean
the
all
fish?
the fish. And a lot of those bars and restaurants on that creek will cook that fish for you if it's fully filleted.
That was going to be my next question, man. If I have these fresh cobia fillets, is there someone that's going to cook it up for me? So right there on the creek, huh?
Yep, Water's Edge usually does the best job at that.
And we had mentioned, I should have asked this earlier. We had talked about it, I think, earlier. But your typical cobia trip is you call it a 3/4 day. It's a 6-hour trip.
Yep. I usually do a 6 or an 8 hour, 6 hour minimum, because it takes us, depending on the weather and how choppy it is, it takes us anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on how rough it is, to get out there. And then that leaves us with, 4 hours to fish and then another 30 minutes to an hour to get back. That's why I prefer doing 8-hour trips, but 6 hour, we can get it done in 6 hours.
And is it important to hit it early in the morning, either for bait or fish purposes, or you
like
just
leaving
assume
early
you
in
need
the
some
morning.
sun up in the sky?
Yeah, I usually like try to leave early in the morning. That way we have plenty of daylight. And usually that bait does stack up just as the sun's coming up. It stacks up best then. Usually when it gets hot, the sun gets high in the sky. Sometimes they'll still hang out for the most part. They kind of move on. So early in the morning is the best way to go.
All right. Couple more travel questions. What about a place to stay, man? If I don't have $600 a night burning a hole in my pocket for Charleston,
Sure.
Where can I stay?
There's a few hotels downtown. One of the larger ones, there's one off Magnolia. That's pretty good. And if you're willing to travel 25 minutes outside Charleston, there's a Lake Moultrie. My aunt actually rents out a house out there with a boat landing and a dock. It's a newer house. It's pretty nice. I think she charges like $140 a night to have your own landing and a dock, which isn't bad.
Oh no, that isn't bad, man. I think we've exhausted my question list. How about you, Cody, man? You want to talk about Charleston nearshore cobia. I've tried to set you up with questions. Is there anything that I haven't set you up to say? Any final thoughts on this fishery or these trips that you'd like to get out to our audience?
It's the cool thing about doing that is on your way out, you can see a lot of cool things. And there's, pit stops we make on the way out to do these cobia. A lot of times you're going to see a lot of false albacore. And throw those little jigs on light tackle. Those things is a blast. And most of the time, we'll stop and catch a few on the way out or on the way back in. And you catch more than cobia out there. Sometimes you'll catch this big bull redfish. You'll catch king mackerel. Lots of bycatch out there when cobia fishing. That's what keeps it fun. There's always something different happening out there.
And then how about a quick highlight reel? Like what else is All-in-One Charters doing throughout the calendar? I know you're more than nearshore cobia, so again,
Sure.
not being exhaustive, but a highlight reel of what you're doing throughout the year.
So right now, those big bull redfish are schooled out in the ocean, and we're talking thousands of them that come up to the top of the water column. You'll see the ocean glowing orange. That's what I've been focusing on lately. And we're using all artificials on those. We're using jigs, big hoagies, bucktails, topwaters. It doesn't matter. That right now is what we're doing. It's one of those days where if you get on them, every time you drop within a few seconds, you're hooked up to this big redfish. And then usually after that, come mid-January, I'm out, doing a lot of fly fishing for redfish on my flats boat. A lot of clients want to catch this redfish on fly that are schooled up on those flats. And, we do a little bit of everything, tarpon fishing in the summer. King mackerel fishing. We do pretty much everything. That's kind of why we're called All-in-One. We do it all.
All right, man. Well, Cody, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I was unaware. I knew you guys had cobia, but I was unaware of the level of cobia you had. So I am very happy
really cool.
We did this podcast, as I'm sure my viewers and listeners are, man. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you willing to share with us your knowledge, your insight. More fish, more often, man. Hope I'm talking to you again, and being full exposure, man. I hope I'm fishing with you sometime. You've got me excited. If this podcast doesn't work to get a couple of calls, then I can't imagine that. This has been in my mind, a great conversation.
Sure. Come join me anytime, whenever you're ready.
All right, Cody. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir. Nice talking to you.
Billy.
What's up, Gary? All right.
Are you ready to go catch some cobia or what?
No, I'm actually ready to catch something else on that boat.
What?
I'll save it for my takeaway.
All right, Billy.
Set me up.
Now that I've
please,
spoken with
Gary.
Cody, what would be Billy's best takeaway?
All right, so I want to catch an amberjack. And I want to tie that thing up. I want to slice it and dice it. And I want to put it on the end of the boat for a tiger shark. And then hopefully catch a cobia. But that sounded pretty Wild West to me and got me pretty excited. I'm probably, might be a couple people be like hating on us for that, but that's got to be like an experience, man, like a crazy experience, I would imagine. So
I would have to think so, man. I mean, again, recently I've been putting more emphasis on the visual pleasure of fishing. And yes, the thought of a big flesh-eating shark coming up to the boat and yanking at this thing and pulling it around, yes, that plays into my wheelhouse right now. I mean, I can't imagine it doesn't play into most people's wheelhouse, but whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
even better if I
all
could play
kinds of different
tug of war with it. That'd be great. I mean, just crazy. So, all right, that's my takeaway. So I'm like, all right, that's kind of crazy, but crazy strategy. But you know what? Whatever works. So,
yeah, man.
All right.
Well,
Gary,
it was a good episode. I guess wrap us up, man.
Yeah, man. Great episode. And once again, this is made possible by Marine Warehouse Center, locations in Wilmington, North Carolina, and also in the Charleston area. So look them up and have them help you out with your boat. If you're buying a boat, selling a boat, getting your boat serviced, all those kinds of things. And then also our other sponsor for this episode is Bland Landscaping Co. And they are looking for career-minded people to come join their team. And they have a big focus on the outdoor lifestyle. So if that's you and you're looking for a career this year, a new career, then go to their website and see what they have available in your area. So Gary, that's it, man. Great episode. Loved it. And got me fired up about that tiger shark. It's so crazy. We'll talk to you in the next one, Gary.
All right, Billy. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks. All right, cool. He did